With America's love for SUVs not going anywhere anytime soon, one segment that has been of particular interest for the enthusiast is the performance crossover. Now, Audi's been at the forefront of this marketplace with the introduction of the SQ5 back in 2014, and this week I'm testing out the all-new second generation SQ5. While it may not look that different, it sports an all-new turbocharged V6 with the company's patented quattro all-wheel drive. So is this the perfect vehicle for the enthusiast who has to go to an SUV? That's what we're here to find out. So I was a big fan of the original SQ5 when it was introduced back in 2014. I never showed you guys an actual full review, but I thought it was a really interesting performance crossover. Now the Q5 is actually Audi's best-selling model. The company consistently moves over 5,000 units every year. It outsells even the A4. So an SQ5 is a really important model for the brand. And you can see this second generation really doesn't look all that different than the first generation. That's kind of been a problem with a lot of Audis today, is their design language is kind of taking a more evolutionary approach. Some of you may like that, some of you may wish that Audi would take a little bit more design risk here. But you can see, looking at the front end, it has the traditional Audi design statements here. It's got like a platinum satin finished grille designating that it's an SQ5. You'll have an SQ5 badge in the grille. You have full LED headlights that are standard on all the SQ5s. My Prestige model is basically just the top of the line model. There's either the Premium Plus or the Prestige. Audi got rid of the fog lights on this generation Q5, but you do have parking sensors, and then you have a 360 camera system. But I mean, overall, it kind of looks like a smaller version of the Q7 SUV, which isn't really a bad thing. It kind of takes more of like a wagon hot hatch look as opposed to the traditional crossover sense. Now, looking over around the sides here, you can see my tester has these optional 21-inch wheels. They look fantastic. It's like part of a $1,500 upcharge to get these wheels. They're wrapped in 255 series rubber. My tester also has red painted brake calipers. That's part of the S-Line Sport package that gives you an air suspension. Now, that air suspension is a first for the SQ5. It gives you the ability to raise this car, the car's ground clearance from either 5 inches on the lowest setting all the way up to 9 inches in the off-road, mode, which is what I have it set in right now. Now, size-wise, this isn't really any bigger than the old model. Audi says they stretched the wheelbase by about a half inch. It's about an inch longer overall, but you really wouldn't tell. This is honestly just the right size for a lot of consumers out there looking for a family vehicle that don't need a third row. Now, if you want to follow me over to the rear of the vehicle, it also takes a very evolutionary approach again. You have very similar looking taillights as the previous model. I honestly have to squint super hard to see any differences, but you do have the new dynamic turn signals where they're kind of, flash in sequence of the direction that you're turning. And then down here is the most controversy with the SQ5. You have fake exhaust tips. Now, usually I'm not going to give them too much flack because, there'll be a hole here, but you can see there's a plastic piece here. The exhaust is actually underneath here, but despite the fact that it's fake, it actually does sound good. I just kind of wish that they gave us the more traditional, a quad outlet exhaust tip. That was always a differentiating factor of an S model. But overall, it's a nice looking vehicle. A little bit on the safe side, especially in this gray color, but I think it should age well, and I think a lot of buyers should be pleased with the overall look. Like all the other newer Audi products that I've shown you, the SQ5 has the newer Audi key. There's even an S badge on it to designate that you have the special model. It has smart key access system with push button start. If you lock the doors, it has a nice little beep. The mirror is also electrically fold if you have it set to that. But because you have the smart key, all you have to do is keep the key fob on you, and then there's a little indentation here where you can lock the door. It'll beep again, or if you want to unlock it, the door handle actually opens from the upper part. Just touch the back of the handle, and then it flips up, and then you can open the door. Now, looking at the inside of my particular tester, you can see I have the upgraded Napa leather with the diamond quilting. It's a very impressive looking seat. They look expensive. They also hug you. They're really nicely equipped. If you want the heated and cooled function that my tester does not have, you are going to lose the diamond quilting. Instead, you'll just have perforated leather, so that's kind of a disappointment. And if you want something a little bit more brighter, like a red leather, you cannot get cooled seats. If you want cooled seats, you're kind of limited to a black interior, which is a little bit disappointing. But you can see my tester also has a really nice looking interior. It's very familiar if you guys know the latest Audi products. I have an optional carbon fiber trim here for like $1,000, I think, which does look pretty nice, especially in this particular combination. Now, stepping inside, the SQ5 has a really easy traditional SUV step-in height. Again, I have it set to its automatic setting, which gives you around 7 inches of ground clearance. Now, when you shut the door, it sounds nice and solid, typical of an Audi product. Now, when you want to start the vehicle up, all you have to do is put your foot on the brake and then push the starter button, which is down here, lined with a red outline here on the SQ5 to start it up. Now, the mirrors will automatically open up, as you can see, and the engine. This engine, honestly, is super exciting, especially for an SUV. It makes all the actual burble and crackle noises, which is definitely really nice, especially when you're driving a vehicle that's sitting up this high. Now you can see the interior, it's very familiar with all the other newer Audi products that I've shown you. Updated dashboard design versus the A4 and A5 that I also just showed you. This is the all-new interior of the Q5, which is just a complete upgrade from the previous generation, especially technology-wise. You can see you have the virtual cockpit display. The S models have a unique display. When you push this view button here, you can see it goes to the traditional view that I've shown you guys before, and then push the view button again. It gives you the tach front and center, which is really nice. Now, looking at the rest of the interior quality, this is where Audi kind of isn't really a class leader anymore. Whereas if you look at a new Mercedes product, you have nice stitching on the dash, on the door panels. Audi just goes with a soft touch, injection molded piece here on the dash, which is, definitely nice, but it's not really wow factor like, some of the other competitors. I do like the carbon fiber trim here. It's a worthy upgrade here. If you guys want it for $1,000, you do get aluminum or wood available if you want that. Down here, it's actually hard touch plastic, so that's a little bit disappointing, especially on the glove compartment. This is an Audi product, so I wasn't expecting that. On the door panels, it is also a softer touch plastic, although it does feel kind of hard. Again, I wish Audi kind of stitched it in leather. What they did stitch in leather is right here on the armrest when you guys get the fine Napa leather interior. So that's definitely expected. I also like the suede that they put on the door panel here. The mirror controls are here. The windows are one-touch automatic for all four. Kind of expected that again. This is an Audi product here. The door handle here is also aluminum. You have two-person memory seats. Now, looking at the steering wheel, this is specific to the SQ5. It's a really nice steering wheel, flat bottom design. I like how I can actually put my hand here because there's this big, open portion here, which is somehow some people like to drive. You have paddle shifters that are plastic. They're mounted on the wheel, although they do have a nice feel to them when you actually use them. The virtual cockpit display, if you guys want to change the view, you can see I can put the, GPS nav, the Google Earth map system there. If you want a bigger view, just push the view button on the steering wheel here. It'll give you to the huge view for the Google Earth map, which is really nice. That's a very trademark Audi virtual cockpit. Looking at the rest of the center stack here, you can see Android Auto and Apple CarPlay. That is standard on all SQ5 models, which is definitely nice. It's not a touchscreen here, so don't be putting your fingerprints all over that. Instead, you want to use the touchpad here, or you want to use the the wheel, which honestly has a really nice, satisfying click to the Audi MMI interface. You can see here, going back to the regular display, this is the home screen of the Audi MMI display. It's really nice. This vehicle also has the Audi Drive Select, which is included. There's several different modes. Individual is where you can customize, how you want the vehicle's steering, the suspension, the exhaust to be. I actually have it in dynamic mode a lot, or if you want this vehicle, because it has the air suspension, put it into a lift off-road mode, and it'll actually jack the suspension up to about 9 inches of ground clearance, which is ridiculous. You have a commanding view of the road in a performance SUV. If you put some decent tires, you could theoretically take this off-road, which I don't think I would want to, but down here you can see you have dual zone automatic climate control. You have three-way heated seats. If you guys get the cooled seat function, the button will be here, but because I don't have it, it's just a blank space. When you have the climate control system on, it's all very easy to use. I like the touch sensitive toggles here, which are really nice. It kind of makes it pop up whenever you touch that. It's all, really high quality. Everything in here fits really nicely. Everything has a satisfying click whenever you use the buttons and start touching the knobs. Now you can see down here, you can see this is the newest version of Audi MMI display. It's got a handwriting pad here when you're inputting your GPS destination. You have your presets here. There's 8 different preset functions that are on that little pad there, which is definitely nice. The MMI is controlled again from, different quadrants. You can see here you have your typical shortcut buttons here: radio, media, nav, multimedia, telephone, all that stuff. And then if you want, you can put the GPS navigation up there, and you can have it up here for 2 screens, which is just cool. Not really necessary, but again, Audi does a really good job with their interface. Love MMI. It's one of the best in the business. Now this controls the ZF sourced 8-speed automatic transmission. It is this newer electronic shifter, which does take a little bit of getting used to. You always want to push this button here to engage a gear. Park is engaged by pushing this button here. When you put the vehicle into reverse, you do have a 360 camera system that my tester has because it's a Prestige. You can see the resolution quality is excellent. You have a top-down view, you have front and rear parking sensors, although this vehicle does not automatically parallel park itself. You also have an electronic parking brake here. Surprisingly, there's no brake hold function, which is kind of strange. I wasn't really expecting that, but the shifter does take some getting used to. You do have a manual mode here. You can also kick it back here and goes into a sport setting whenever you guys have it in its dynamic settings, or if you have it in the individual modes. Over here you have your volume controls. You can also skip a track or change your station from that little knob, which honestly feels really satisfying to use. There's a nice little portion here where you can put your smartphone or some change. There's some cup holders here, which are a little bit on the small side. This armrest here adjusts up and down, or you can move it forward. When you lift it up here, there's some storage here. This tray slides forward and back. You can see you can put lots of stuff here. Your 2 USB ports and an aux port are here. This is when Audi finally got rid of their stupid proprietary MMI interface, which was in the dashboard of the previous generation. You can see, speaking of the glove compartment here, it's huge. It's lined with felt. It's damped. It's a good size. You can definitely put some good stuff in there. And then my tester is standard with a panoramic sunroof, which is gigantic. It has a power retractable sunshade in case you guys don't want all that sun beating down on you. But you can see here, love the pano sunroof. Love the interior. It could use upgraded materials just to kind of go in line with what Mercedes is doing. But I think most of you are going to get in this interior and be super wowed with the level of technology that Audi stuffs in this cabin. Because this is a family car, the rear seat is equally important if you guys are going to be considering one of these. Now, it's actually pretty good. Now, Audi was able to increase the space here because of that wheelbase stretch. You can see the opening to get in is a little bit larger, and the rear seat actually does some nice tricks. It actually has a lever here where you can kind of adjust the angle of the seat back, and you can also move the seat forward and back. So it has a small level of adjustability. However, I don't know why you'd want the seat all the way forward. You would be eating into the legroom here. Now, when you step inside the rear seat, you can see I'm pretty short, but it's a pretty good amount of space. I'm only 5'7", but there's lots of foot space here. I have good headroom, I have good knee room. There's 2 map pockets right here, and then Audi gives you a couple of features in here. You have rear seat air vents and then your own set of climate controls. I don't see heated rear seats. I don't see any sunshades, but you do have a nice view from the panoramic sunroof here, and you have an armrest that folds down with some cup holders to give you a little bit more comfort. Really, this is just for 2 people. For 3, it'd be a little bit more cramped. So in the past, the V6T badge on an SQ5 really actually didn't mean anything because it had a supercharged V6. This, however, now has a turbocharged V6, so it actually does mean something. Now, the under the hood is the biggest differentiating factor between an S model and your neighbor's garden variety Q5. And when you lift up the hood, you have a very nice looking engine bay covered with plastic, but it's a 3-liter V6, the same displacement as the old model. And if you want a 6-cylinder in your Q5, you have to go for an SQ5. It is now single turbo. It's a single turbo engine, not a twin turbo, but it does have a twin scroll design, and it's kind of nestled in the V bank angle, so it's a hot V to kind of mitigate lag. Now it still makes the same power, 354 horsepower and 369 pound-feet of torque, about 23 more pound-feet of torque versus the old model, and it's also available at from like 1500 all the way up to 5000 RPM, so it's a much broader torque curve. Now it all goes out through the same transmission as last year, a ZF Source 8-speed automatic, one of the best transmissions in the business. This is a heavy SUV though. It still weighs around 4,400 pounds, so the Audi didn't reduce the weight at all by updating this model. Now, fuel economy did improve. It's now rated at 19 city, 24 highway, about a 2 mpg improvement. Please put premium gas in it. It has about an 18.5 gallon gas tank, but let's get out on the road and see how it all performs. So usually I don't get too excited to drive an SUV. However, the SQ5 has always been one of my favorite crossovers in the segment not just because it's got a really ballsy engine, but it's also kind of the well-rounded package. I mean, if you had to get an SUV and you like fast cars, you know, you're used to driving a sports car, this is the one that you probably want to take a look at. Now, my first impressions initially driving this car are really positive. It has a very car-like feel, and although, you know, you have a higher seating position, there are times where I forgot I was driving an SUV. But for the primary portion of this test drive, I'm going to leave it in its dynamic setting because you guys, I know, want to see how this thing drives. And, you know, visibility in here is really good. The steering is really light. It's really smooth. And you just have an immediate sense of quality when you first get into this vehicle. Oh my God. So my tester being that it has the sport differential, I can immediately feel it working when I, you know, floored it and I took that right. You can feel the mechanical limited slip diff kind of pushing the power to the outside rear wheel to kind of rotate you around the corner, and that's really what makes this car so special. It's an incredibly fun to drive car. SUV even. I mean, I forget that I'm driving an SUV when I'm driving this thing. It's amazing. And it has those nice little burbles and crackles and farting noises from the exhaust. That is just fantastic. I'm impressed. Oh my God, this is such a riot. And the 8-speed automatic, this is a ZF transmission, one of the best in the business. Now, I do notice that when you have it in its regular drive mode, it can be a little bit sleepy at times. I don't know if it's the turbo lag from the 6, which honestly it shouldn't have any, it's a hot V, but sometimes I notice I have to put it into its sport setting to really kind of get rid of the lag entirely. It's a little bit slow to react initially at throttle tip-in when you first dip into the gas. Now, Audi says this car will get to 60 in about 5.1 seconds. It feels about right. Honestly, it isn't any faster than the previous Supercharged V6, so that's kind of a disappointment. What I do feel, though, is plenty of torque. I mean, it has a really strong surge of torque. It's got a fat torque curve from like 1,400 to like 5,000 RPM, where the engine just kind of shoves you back in the seat. And the SQ5 is not a light SUV. This thing's heavy. It's like 4,500 pounds. So you do feel that weight when you start attacking some corners. Now, and the steering also has that traditional Audi numbness. I would highly recommend trying the dynamic steering, which is a $1,000 option. My tester does not have it, so I can't comment if it's any better or not. But even in its sharpest setting right now, I do find the steering, while it is quick for an SUV, it just doesn't let me know what the front tires are doing, so it doesn't really give me the confidence to kind of go attack these twisty roads, you know, in a much more frantic manner like I would in like a sports sedan, for example. But the ride quality is very good. It's got that adjustable air suspension. Even in its stiffest setting, I could daily drive it in this and it's perfectly fine. But if you guys want it to be a little softer, it does have a comfort setting, which will make it even smoother if you guys have a spouse that doesn't really like stiff riding vehicles. But I mean, overall, the only thing my tester is missing just is full suite of driver assistance. You do have Audi Presense Basic and Presense City, so it will automatically hit the brakes for you if you're going to crash at low speeds. But if you guys want the full suite of driver assistance tech, you have to go for a driver assistance package. It's like another $2,000 only on the Prestige trim that my tester is missing. I kind of wish Audi made it available on other trims. It's kind of annoying that you have to go to the highest trim to get it. This is just incredible. Honestly, this is the perfect amount of speed, I believe, for most enthusiasts. I mean, sure, is there room for Audi to do like an RS Q5 with like 450 horsepower? Absolutely. But really, this is going to be the perfect amount of, you know, the perfect blend of speed, of comfort, of utility, of performance for a lot of buyers. And that's where the SQ5 kind of just hits the sweet spot. It's just a really incredibly well-rounded car. Now, let's talk a little bit about the gas mileage, because Audi did improve it slightly for this generation. It's rated at 19 19.24, and I've actually been averaging about 19.2 in my week's worth of driving. On the highway, I got it up to about just under 24, 23.8 is what the trip computer showed. It's right on the money. It could be better, but again, I just personally like to get my foot into it because it makes some really nice noises from the exhaust. So I imagine those of you who have a little bit more restraint could get better gas mileage. This is pretty much on par with the rest of the segment, but I mean, overall, I only really have this to compare. You know, I've driven the GLC 43 Mercedes. I've driven the Jaguar F-Pace S. I've driven the BMW X4 40i, which again, all of them are very similar in terms of their outputs, and they all make for incredibly well-rounded cars. Where the Audi really shines for me is in the interior and the technology and just the user interface. But it would be a really hard choice between this and the Mercedes. You really need to try test driving both. But overall, I think this is definitely one of the best family crossovers that's just the right size, has the perfect blend of power and speed, and it has a lot of features in it that'll make a lot of buyers happy, especially if you can afford this price tag. So although crossovers are extremely popular here in the US, you guys may know that I'm personally not the biggest fan of them. However, after spending a week with the all-new SQ5, I have to admit this is one of the crossovers I would personally consider for myself. The others being maybe the Mercedes-AMG GLC 43 or the Jaguar F-Pace, which I showed you guys a full review on last year. Now, the SQ5 is definitely one impressive vehicle. As you guys saw, the interior is very tech heavy, yet it has high quality materials. It's comfortable, it's roomy, it's spacious, it has Android Auto and CarPlay, which is very important for the millennials who actually do want to buy these things. Now, the driving dynamics are also really fantastic. It's very quick, it has really nice burbles and crackles from the exhaust, it's got a smooth transmission, it's fast, it's quiet, it's comfortable. I mean, this is seriously, the kind of vehicle that the enthusiast is going to want to replace their sedan or their coupe if you guys actually have to get a vehicle with some trunk space and some rear seat space. That brings me to the final aspect of the SQ5, the price. And this is where this car will have some sticker shock, especially for those younger buyers. This car starts at around $55,000, which is about $12,000 more than a standard Q5. Now, my tester being the Prestige is a little bit more expensive. It's about $4,200 to add the Prestige package, where you get the virtual cockpit display, navigation, upgraded sound system. My tester has a couple of options on it. The Sport package for $3,000, the fine Napa leather seats, the big 21-inch wheels. The color's like $600. All in, my testers is stickering for an eye-watering $65,800. Now that is going to be a lot of sticker shock, especially if Audi wants to actually attract some younger buyers, but considering the fact that the SQ5 has been doing well for them since they introduced it, I imagine a lot of you who can afford this kind of a car are going to be putting this one at the top of your list. But anyways, I hope you guys have enjoyed my full overview on this 2018 Audi SQ5. If you're also looking to see the latest cars I'm testing, make sure you follow me on Instagram at redline_reviews, like us on Facebook, and if you haven't done so, please subscribe to the Redline Reviews YouTube channel for all the latest reviews. Thanks so much for watching, guys. I'll catch you all in the next video. I have to say, this is one of the SUVs I would personally consider owning myself. When I reviewed the Jaguar, there's a bee, there's a bee. You got that on camera too. It like touched my arm. I was like, ah. Okay, sorry.
Please put that in the bloopers.
Maybe.